Today we do something impossible, something that cannot be done by any normal human being, something that would melt our flesh if we tried to do it on our own. Today we will try to do an in-depth review of the unwanted child of Obsidian known as Avowed. Now, I will say this, Avowed is by no means the worst game I've ever played. There are games that are way worse than Avowed, way more unplayable, way more buggy, and with way worse story. But saying Avowed is better than Dustborn doesn't mean much now, does it? Avowed is by no means a good game, and it is not the worst game either, but it is worse than mid. As you can see, we have only just begun the video, and I'm already having trouble defining the quality of Avowed because this game is such a mess. Before we begin the autopsy of this dead toddler, I would just like to say that these videos take an absurdly long time to make. This is my longest video yet, and editing this took days. Give the video a like, comment something nice, and do not forget to subscribe, guys. It only takes a second and it would make my day. So without further ado, let's get right into the desecration of this corpse. This video is divided into multiple chapters, and we will start with the good aspects of the game to the worst aspects of the game. Let's start with what I liked the most about the game, the music. The music of Avowed is the best thing about the game, as it is quite ambient and pleasing to listen to. That is all there is to say about the things I liked about the game. Now let's get into the bad. Throughout this video, you will hear me mention that the people who have worked on this game have no semblance of reality and how real life or even physics work. Now some straw-manning retard in the comments will probably say something like, "It is a fantasy game. They don't need to care about basic logic." They don't need to care about how normal people talk, normal conversations, popular beliefs, or even how momentum or force works, how parrying attacks or blocking attacks with a shield works, so on and so forth. Sure, the numbskulls who made this game don't need to care about any of this, but it does make great strides to ensure that I never feel immersed while playing this game. For the entirety of my playthrough, the gameplay was tedious, didn't make any logical sense, and constantly made me realize I'm playing a bad video game, which is extremely politically charged every step of the way. Every single time I opened my inventory or map or ability menu, the game would bug out and I wouldn't be able to walk forward for a while. But me saying this isn't enough to show you the problem. So let's get into this. My first and biggest issue with the gameplay is the gear system in the game. Being good at this game is all about having the highest tier gear possible that you get from Fortnite chests. Yes, you heard me right. The corporate overlords at Obsidian decided that to really engage their player base, they needed to add Fortnite chests of different rarities to give you the gear upgrade material in every single region. To me, this was a huge turnoff, because this game is trying its hardest to capture the Skyrim player base, but it does everything worse. Most of your meaningful loot comes from the Fortnite chests conveniently placed all around the map. What do you get from corpses? Enchanting materials that you will use 4 times at most throughout the entire game. Why would you use enchanting materials less when enchanting makes your weapons and gear so powerful? Because you can only enchant a weapon once. Here's an even crazier thing they did. You can only enchant unique weapons, so any of the non-unique weapons are completely useless, and there is no player freedom for the player to make their own set of enchanted gear. All unique weapons have their own personal enchantments. You can only upgrade the enchantment once. That's it. The resources you need to upgrade your gear are so rare that you would have to spend hours grinding through the map, finding chests, just to get 2 weapons and a chest piece up to spec to match the enemy level in this region. The system is extremely stringent. Player freedom to change builds or try something new is disincentivized due to the expense of upgrading gear quality. But in the stat and ability tree, player freedom is incentivized because you can just respec all of your perk points by paying a gold fee. Which is it, Obsidian? Do you want the players to be creative with their builds, or do you want them to stick to the same build from start to finish? Also, using gold to upgrade the gear grade once we reach the legendary gear quality makes no sense. I am the one creating the gear. Why do I need to spend gold on myself when crafting my own gear? It doesn't make any sense, Obsidian. Also, the size of your enemy compared to your character doesn't matter. All that matters is what color is showing besides your enemy's name. Be careful of the pink color Zarip. If you have blue gear, he will one-shot you. What did you say? He's only half your size and it is physically impossible for him to do any damage to you? Well, guess what, loser? We don't care. We believe in Obsidian logic. It was so immersion breaking to see all these corpses of these soldiers from the strongest army in the game lay dead because they managed to lose a fight with the goblin equivalent of this game's world. I will not talk any further about the combat because that will be in the combat section of this video. Now that we have talked about the horrible gear system, let's talk about how horrible the camp system is. The only reason this is in the game is because corporate told them that they have to put this in the game because Baldur's Gate 3 has it. And Baldur's Gate 3 is a popular game. The camp system is the most half-assed system in the game that serves no purpose than to prolong playtime because your camp is always set up in a different instance than the map, meaning every time you set up a camp or go in and out of a camp, there is a loading screen, and every time you need to sell any of your items from your stash to the vendors, you have to first go to a vendor, sell all of your previous gear, teleport to a camp, loading screen, then take all the gear into your inventory, then TP out of the camp, and then back to the vendor and sell it again. In this process, you have gone through 3 loading screens just to sell your gear that you can send to your stash from anywhere on the map. Here's my question, Obsidian. If I can send my stuff to my stash from anywhere on the map, why can't I get it back from my stash to my inventory from anywhere on the map? Another half-assed, poorly thought out system. Quality of life should go both ways, not just one. In the camp system, after all the side quests or main quests, your companions have some choice words and reactions to everything you do. They did this in the most tedious way possible because you have to go talk to them over and over again because they don't say everything they want to say in a chain. You have to keep pressing F just to have them say everything they wanted to say. This was done way better in the Outer Worlds, another game made by Obsidian which did this way better. For one, the loading screens in that game didn't take ages because unlike Avowed, it was well optimized. All in all, to me the camp system in this game is useless and serves little to no purpose. You can only upgrade and enchant your weapons in the camp, but in the Outer Worlds, you could do it anywhere in the map where there was a workbench. Heck, you could do it anywhere you wanted in Skyrim as long as there was an enchantment table there or an alchemist table there. For Avowed, they tried to copy systems from every single possible IP, but what completely eludes my mind is that if they wanted to copy popular IPs so bad, why did they do a worse job than the IPs they were copying? Let's compare the budget of Avowed to Skyrim. Keep in mind that this is an estimate and we don't have any real numbers for Avowed or Skyrim. The images presented are just estimates. So apparently they both took $100 million to make. We haven't counted the marketing budget for Avowed, of course. I mean, there wasn't really one because you didn't really see any marketing. All I can say is, my god, the difference in gameplay is insane. Now granted, $100 million in 2011 costs way more now than it did back then thanks to inflation. After seeing these numbers, we can safely say Skyrim today would cost $141 million while Avowed costs $100 million. Can the lack of quality in Avowed really be justified compared to Skyrim, a game that came out 14 years ago? I thought technology gets better as we get into the future, guys. Isn't that how it goes? Where are my flying cars that were supposed to come out 20 years ago? Regardless, my point is, it's crazy to me how they can spend so much money on such a big piece of shit. Now let's move on to the ability tree, another poorly thought out system. We have 3 ability trees: Fighter, Ranger, and Mage. Mage is by far the worst one. The Mage ability tree expects you to spend the ability points you gain once per level to learn a singular spell. You can always just use grimoires, but those are only level 1 spells. If you want to use spells without a grimoire, you need to invest into it in the skill tree, which to me seems a huge waste of the 30 total points we get if we hit max level which I nearly did by the end of my playthrough. The only reason I didn't make it to the max level is because of the horrible game-breaking bugs of this game, which we will get to in the story section of this video. Now, most of these abilities are huge downgrades from Obsidian Studios' own games that they made in the past, including The Outer Worlds and Fallout New Vegas. They are basic numeric boosts to damage, with only a few actual special skills for each class that can be counted on 2 hands. It's way too basic, and I don't like to see literal downgrades from their previous games that they made, and that is why this is an issue to me. Nobody is saying these are terrible. I'm just saying this is way less than before. Would you be happy if your new car is worse than your old car? Of course you wouldn't. You would be pissed off, and so was I after seeing how little thought went into this ability tree. The vendors in this game never reset. That means there is only a finite amount of items you can buy from each vendor, making loot even rarer. While people do have an issue with the lack of a lockpicking mini-game, I personally don't really care that it just consumes lockpicks, since Skyrim's lockpicking minigame to me seemed more like a waste of time. But my issue with the lockpicking in this game is that you can't even lockpick all the locked doors or chests. You can only lockpick the doors or chests that they allow you to. That means you are forced to find keys for most doors anyway, giving you the illusion of choice. Lockpicks in this game are useless except for opening the Fortnite loot chests. That's what I dislike about this game. We are just about to finish talking about the gameplay. The final part of gameplay is the stat system. This has to be the most basic bit stat system I have ever seen, with most stats being completely useless narrative-wise and giving you barely any bonuses in terms of actual usability. Might gives you more attack damage and carry capacity, but carry capacity is useless when you can just send everything to your stash at any time. Dexterity is the most useless stat in the game, second only to Constitution, because health is useless if you aren't taking any damage. The only thing intellect stat is useful for are a few dialogue options. Same with the perception stat. The most useful stat in the game is resolve, because without this stat being high, you literally can't get the best outcome in multiple quests, which are main quests and side quests. So to me, the entire stat system is poorly thought out and heavily imbalanced. Now that we have covered all aspects of this game's gameplay, let's talk about combat. My biggest gripe with this game's combat is the stamina system. To summarize it in one word, I mean it's not really one word, it's more like a sentence. It makes zero sense. My character can run indefinitely without losing any stamina, but pulling a bowstring, shooting a pistol, or lightly swinging a sword is too much for him? Are you serious? Did you know that your character will get too tired to swing his sword after just 10 slashes? Bro, even I can do better than that, and I haven't even touched a sword. I'm more of a glaive user. Losing stamina for heavy attacks with a sword is understandable. Losing stamina for a charged shot of a bow is understandable too. But for light attacks? Nah. I'm good. The only thing the stamina system of this game does is make the combat feel sluggish and break the flow of combat, causing these moments where you can literally do nothing until this wide bar on your screen fills up to a certain amount, just for you to do 3 more swings and have to wait again. A terrible system all around. The melee combat of this game was so unfun that I spent the entire game trying to make a ranged build, only to realize that unique pistols are only found near the end of the game. So I spent most of my playthrough using a sword and a grimoire, even though my entire character build was for ranged weapons. Using mage spells in this game feels like shooting a confetti gun. I can use a spell, it will hit everyone and show damage in the numbers, but the enemies will stand there like nothing happened. This makes me feel like my mage weapons have no weight to them and no force behind them. My attacks are cosmetics that are just decreasing a health bar instead of actually damaging the enemy. The enemies you fight in this game are recycled in every region as is. The only difference between the enemies in different regions is that they have a different color besides their name. Really immersive, Obsidian. Remember back when you used to make good games and enemies used to be unique to the area you were exploring? Oh, everyone who made those games left the studio? Oh, okay, no wonder this is such a big piece of shit. But genuinely explain this to me. How can beetles parry my attacks? How and why? It is a beetle. So what if it's bigger than a normal beetle? It is still a beetle. This made no sense. I'm attacking a beetle, but because a purple color is surrounding his HP bar, now he will deflect my attacks until I do a heavy attack. It makes no sense. It would make more sense if it's a guy with a shield, but not when it's a beetle. This reminds me of that scene from God of War Ragnarok, where they literally showed Kratos getting beaten up by an oversized bear. My god, they have destroyed that franchise. When is Neil Cuckman getting fired? After Abby comes out as a trans man in The Last of Us 3? Speaking of combat, let's talk about the companions this game forces you to play your entire game with. In the Outer Worlds, you had a choice whether you wanted to bring the companions or not. In Avowed, it's compulsory, and here's the fun part, they are nearly completely useless in combat. Most of the time, they aren't even doing anything and just standing there while you fight the enemy. I remember there were so many times where one enemy was just left in the field, constantly chasing me and hitting me, and these guys were just standing there staring at me as if they were waiting for me to die. The companion AI in this game is really bad. All enemies always attack me, even though originally they were fighting my companions. Another poorly implemented system. Once we get to the bugs in this game, you will start to wonder why they would release something so bad and unfinished that they had to literally release a 66 GB patch just a few days after release. Modern gaming is miserable. Also, why does shooting guns take stamina? Terrible implementation. An ammo system for guns would have been way better. Using dual pistols is clunky because sometimes it doesn't register both inputs and shoots the gun one after another, messing up the stamina. All in all, the combat in this game feels miserable unless you're using ranged weapons. Now let's talk about the boss fights. I think the people who made this game are very stupid because they think just giving somebody a large health bar and a bigger name makes them a boss. This is me fighting the final boss of the game. Wow, this is so challenging, guys. Oh no. I'm sweating, this is so tough. I think this footage speaks for itself. Bosses in this game don't feel like bosses, they just feel like enemies with more health. Another poorly thought out and badly implemented mechanic in the game. I think we've talked enough about the combat, now let's move on to the worst part of the game. The story. The story of this game is what I have the most problems with. It is the most insufferable part of this entire experience and the most flawed as well. Originally, I thought I should make two separate sections of the story and one of bad millennial writing and how the writing shows us that this game has been written by losers who have never had a conversation with a real person because they wasted their entire lives on virtue signaling jerk-off sessions in their echo chamber. Nobody in this game talks like a real person. This game is utterly soulless when it comes to characters. There are only two well-written characters. One is the ambassador and the other is Marius, the dwarf. And that is relative to everything else in the game. We will tackle this monster in one go. So let us begin. The story starts with still images telling us how we are born with a physical abnormality which made us an outcast of society and we were bullied by everyone our entire lives until the king took us in. This game forces us to roleplay as an ugly person, which I really dislike as it breaks all immersion and makes it obvious that it's all just to push their agenda. You play as a person with Down syndrome, who is an apostle of a weird plant lady god that rules the living lands, where the king sent us to understand the dream scourge, a disease that is ripping through the entire continent, corrupting and destroying all living organisms that contract it. You know, let's talk about this disease for a bit, because it seems like not even the writers knew what they were doing here. They seem to be incapable of deciding whether this illness drives the patients into insanity where they are just mindless monsters that will kill any living thing they see, or whether they are sentient and will just kill anything that isn't a part of the dream scourge while maintaining complete autonomy over their body. Now why do I say this? Because in the game we see notes from victims of the dream scourge and how they slowly go insane and become mindless violent monsters. In one case, a mother forgot her own child and spat on his face trying to kill him, to which the father and the child responded by locking her in the house and running away. Another case shows how one guy killed all of his friends as he slowly went insane and then went on to write a note with completely coherent sentences even after he had gone completely insane. Now all of this makes sense. It's a disease that makes people violent and go insane. If that's the case, then why do the dream thralls, the people who cast this illness, have perfect synergy with each other during combat? How can they chant complex magic spells perfectly, aim and shoot guns, while also having enough skills and consciousness to perfectly parry my melee attacks? Make it make sense. Either they are brainless monsters with no personal autonomy, or they are completely in control and just kill anything they see. So back to the starting of the game. We are on our way to Paradise, in Dawnbreak or Dawnshore, I don't really know, the first region of this game. Suddenly, our ship is shot by a ballista from a fort of our own empire, and we crash land on that island, with the only survivors being us and a blue furry. As we venture on, we realize that the soldiers at the fort did this because they were taken over by the Dream Scourge. Okay, so we do know that they have complete autonomy and can perfectly aim and shoot a ballista to shoot us from far away. But then we make our way into the fort, and it's just bodies of dead soldiers everywhere. So you're telling me that they have enough brains to perfectly aim and shoot a ballista, but they are also brainless enough to kill everyone around them, even their own kind. But here's another question. If they will kill their own kind, why do I see them roam in packs and perfectly work together as a team whenever I fight them in the game? Are they brainless or are they conscious? Make up your mind, Obsidian, because you're not making any sense. As we make our way into the fort, we see a token woman character for the modern audience locked in a cell. She calls us ugly for having the Down syndrome and suspects that we have the Dream Scourge too. Here's my question. How did everyone in the fort become a dream thrall and killed each other while she has no symptoms? Are we handpicking who gets the illness and who doesn't? Are women in Avowed so strong and empowered that they are immune to the Dream Scourge in the world of Avowed? Later in the game, we see more and more examples of characters in areas completely corrupted by Dream Scourge, but somehow they are completely sane and didn't contract the illness, while people who are nowhere near the corruption are somehow ill with the Dream Scourge. Does being a woman mean you are automatically vaccinated? And no, we are not going to be making any comparisons to a certain scamdemic that is the direct inspiration for this Dream Scourge illness in this game. I believe the viewer is smart enough to make those comparisons by themselves. So anyone can contract this illness anywhere, and there is no way to defend against it, but somehow our main cast never gets it. Is it the blessing of that weird plant lady called Saptal or Sapatal? You know what? I already forgot her name. So we choose to help out the smuggler girl out of prison. We get to fight a single Dream Thrall soldier, and it's the first boss fight of the game. He dies, everyone's happy, and we get weird voices in our head as we talk to a green stone called the Aedra, which is basically God's excrement that is all around the living lands, which holds supernatural power. Later in the story, the voice reveals itself to be Septal or Sepatal, the goddess of this continent, and she wants us to free her. She is also the reason why we have Down syndrome and were bullied all of our lives, but we will never mention that or talk about it throughout the story. So we reach Paradis, the smuggler leaves, and ends up helping us in a future side quest, which is pretty neat. We help out a girl who is attracted to goblins, but the goblins took over her house, so we have to clear out her beastly lovers. You know what I noticed? This game is so progressive that it makes Einstein look regressive. Who would have thought that? Then we get to know that the ambassador of our nation in Paradise has gone missing, so we venture out into the jungles to find him, only to fight a Dream Thrall bear as a boss, which has the exact same attack patterns as any normal bear in the game. Then we touch another greenstone and the goddess cleanses the land a bit. Next we are about to enter the city of Paradise and we are assassinated and killed. The end. Honestly, if the game ended here, I would have actually been pretty happy with it. I would have given the game a 6 out of 10. But no, the goddess realizes I haven't suffered enough by playing this dog shit game, so she literally revives us, and now it's our job to kill the assassins. So after some fetch quests, we find the guy who killed us in cold blood, the leader of the assassins, who are known as the Paradise Rebels, who killed us to send a message to the Adrian Empire from which we belong. I was actually excited to just completely obliterate and kill him, but all of a sudden, during the dialogue, the game is trying to make me sympathize with my murderer because he was a revolutionary for his people against my oppressive empire. So any killing done for the sake of progress and revolution is completely justified, right? I should totally let this go and let him live because he's just doing it for the good of his own people, right? My god, if you people have a moral compass that is this twisted, no wonder you are mentally ill. And this story shows how sick in the head the writers are. After I killed the guy who literally killed me, my companions try to make me feel like I did something horribly wrong by killing my killer. But after that's done, we move to the gate to go to the next region, because now we believe we have to stop the Dream Scourge with our goddess in tow. Before going, however, the last remaining assassins stop us on our way and tell us that they murdered and put our blue furry friend on display as a message to us to not mess with them ever again. Fun fact, we never see them again in the entire game. Before going, however, for some reason the game didn't allow me to kill all of them right then and there, otherwise I would have taken this opportunity in a heartbeat. So we now reach Emerald Stair, the second region in the game and my least favorite region in the entire game due to the horrible world design and senseless narratives and quests and the game-breaking bugs of this region. After getting to Emerald Stair, we are supposed to go to the city of Fior, which is ruled and run by animancers, who are the scientists of this universe, using essence to make gadgets and stuff. The Steel Garut, which is a religious army that follows the goddess Vudika, disapproves of their practice and wants to annihilate them. On our way to Fior, we find a pink furry mage and get her a vase from the top of a tower, and then she constantly flirts with us for the rest of the game, even though she has a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Wait, no, we haven't reached the woke section yet. I can't just spoil it. So now, on our way, we go through some farmlands where we meet animancers who have automated farming by creating revenants, which are basically tree-like machinery slaves that do the bidding of their masters. This will be important later in a mindfuck of a side quest. So we help her by killing a dream thrall revenant and move on to Fior, where we meet a woman in STEM. This has to be the most progressive medieval world I have ever seen. With our new scientist woman companion in tow, we meet a fat black guy who is the head of the scientists, and we need to bring him a MacGuffin from deep in the jungles to make his machine work, which makes no sense to me because the entire point of a machine is to make it work with the things you have, not the things you don't have in the first place. But you know what, whatever, this is Obsidian logic. So the MacGuffin is with the Queen of the Treants, but here is the crazy part. You have to kill the Treants for a bounty mission, and many Treants attack you on your way to the MacGuffin, where you meet the Queen. When we first meet the Queen, she is calm and composed, willing to give us the MacGuffin, but then she realizes that we killed Treants, so now she wants to kill us instead. Another pointless boss battle with the Queen of the Treants. Then we go under some ancient temple to kill a big mushroom to save the people from the Dream Scourge. Then we come out of the temple and see that the city made of stone buildings and stone walls is burning? Since when did stone start burning? What is this? The Acolyte? Anyway, so Fior is burning. Somehow we are blamed for it, even though we were literally nowhere near the city when the burning took place. But wait, how did we end up here? Let's go back a bit. I had made an oath that I would complete all the content this game had to offer, every single side quest, every single side activity, every bounty, or at least that was the plan, until this broken piece of shit game said, Lamau, no. Back in Paradis, we meet Lodwin, who is a strong, independent woman who is the leader of the Steel Garut, the most elite soldiers of the Living Lands who align with our empire. Their goddess hates our goddess, causing us to be at odds with them. So Lodwin didn't like the Animancers and ended up burning their city, but somehow the people of that city used to blame us, even though we are just an envoy for the Adrian Empire. Even though we literally have nothing to do with the Steel Garut, neither do we hold any power over them, they still blame us. Make it make sense. Heck, we don't even get any hints about the fact that they are about to burn the entire city. During one of the bounties in Emerald Stair, we have to kill a few cannibal bandits. When we kill them, we see they have a Steel Garut ranger as a prisoner who tells us about the fact that Lodwin plans on burning the city. But getting to that point is meaningless because the quest was bugged and the guy just stood there repeating the two same lines over and over again. The game soft-locked me out of doing this one quest and stopped me from getting the best ending of the game. Buggy, unplayable trash. Also, there's another side quest where many revenants are attracted to a lake. Deep in the middle of the lake is a meteorite piece. A sage meets us and tells us that the meteorite is bad news and that we need to give it to him so that he can throw it deep into the ocean out of the reach speech of mortal men. This random ass sage just comes out of nowhere and tells us to do something about this. Me being the good Samaritan that I am, I say, sure bro. I dive into the lake, grab the meteorite, and all of a sudden every revenant is trying to kill me. Which also made no sense, because if they are hostile towards anything containing the meteorite, shouldn't they be trying to kill the lake too? But at this point, trying to use logic on plot written by the dwellers of an insane asylum is just a speedrun tactic to lose all of my brain cells. Because really think about it, if they just want to follow the source of this meteorite or this meteorite piece, if they're attracted to it, wouldn't they just follow me? Why are they actively trying to kill me? But hey, this game just wanted to make up any reason for you to end up in a fight with the revenants. So be it. I don't really care either way, it's a bad game. Anyway, back to the main story. So the city burnt down without me even having a chance to save it. So this run is already a failure, but no way in hell was I about to reset the entire game just to fix this buggy mess of a game. So we then moved to the third region, the Shatterscape, which is a desert completely overrun by dream thralls. Also, I just noticed I'm 6,000 words into the script and only halfway done with the game's story. So it's time to pick up the pace. So we get into the desert, save a bunch of people in the mines, save a dying Adrian soldier under a tower full of traps. We help an idiot smuggler deliver drugs to his twin brother. We help a war hero hide his disgraced past. We save a city from a dream thrall invasion. Then we take the purple furry with us to meet the archmage, who has put a barrier all around the temple which we need to enter to get to the garden where our goddess is. Is the plot getting convoluted yet? Anyway, so purple furry is a big fan of the archmage, and the archmage herself is a strong, empowered boss babe who don't need no man. A very original trope that we totally haven't seen 100 times already in this game. Also, in the first region, there's this quest about getting this special Aedra stone, and by the end of it we have to fight this strong and empowered woman of color captain who is constantly talking down to us and then wants to beat us up, so we have to kill her too. And you'll notice that in this game every single person of any importance is a woman, which I find to be fascinating. Honestly, why would they do that? I have no idea. Maybe Avowed is truly the most progressive game ever made, and we should be happy that women finally get to act as leaders in a fictional world. So we get to the archmage. She makes us do a stupid puzzle because just putting down the barrier would be too boring, and women hate boring men, so she makes us do life and death puzzles instead. Then she tells the purple furry how to bring down the barrier. We then get to Nakutuku temple and bring down the barrier. I think that's the name of the temple. I don't really remember, and I don't really care. There we get to do some meaningless trials, and the game bugs and glitches again and soft locks me out of the story. I reload a previous save, redo all the trials again, and now we see Lordwyn's reality, that she is actually not just a strong empowered woman leader, she is actually a strong empowered skeleton woman leader. Diversity is just oozing out of every orifice right here. Blackrock would be proud. So I choose to destroy the temple, siding with Lordwyn because that gives a better ending than severing the Aedra, which is the green rocks. And then they get mad because I destroyed their cultural heritage, which was completely barren, and they never went there anyway. Jesus, what a loss. I destroyed something you never used. How sad. After wasting all that time in the desert, we then move on to Galvain's Tusk, the fourth and final region of the game. This is by far the best region in the game to me, because this one isn't just a mix of assets. This one actually has a personality. This is the land of the dwarves, who have sworn an oath to protect the garden, the path to which is completely broken. Life in Galvain's Tusk is miserable. It's a volcanic region with acid and lava and barely any sources of water. Actually, there are sources of water. They shouldn't exist in a volcanic region, but somehow they do. I think the writers at Obsidian don't know how active volcanoes work or lava works. But hey man, it's just a game. Why care about logic at all? Eat the slop and shut your mouth. So we reach Solace Keep, and the entire hold is run by, you guessed it, a strong and empowered dwarf woman of color. Remember how there were no female dwarves in Lord of the Rings, but Rings of Power said fuck it and rewrote the entire canon? I love it when everything I loved in my childhood gets destroyed by women with colored hair and septum piercings. Here is something tedious and stupid and nonsensical they did. There is no fast travel in Solace Keep. Now why is that? Because the writers decided to give you a choice whether you want to destroy it or save it. So every time you want to go there to claim a bounty or complete a mission or buy something with the vendors, you have to teleport to the nearest fast travel point and then walk all the way to Solace Keep, then take an elevator, sit through 2 loading screens, and there you go, sir. Enjoy your time at Solace Keep. You have to do this every time you go there, and it really hampers the gameplay experience for the final act, as it makes the entire process quite tedious. Now here is where it starts to not make any sense. Do we know about another time in the story where we got to decide the fate of a city? Yes, it's Fior. You put a fast travel for Fior, even though that city gets destroyed if we ignore a side quest on the corner of the map, but somehow you didn't make one for Solace Keep, even though its destruction or salvation is part of the main story. Are you people at Obsidian dented in the head? Well, we do know someone who is though. Anyway, now let's get into the moral dilemma of the final act of the game. It's between the male counselor of Solace Keep and the woman who runs Solace Keep. Now, as we all know from feminism, woman good, man bad, and that is the moral dilemma of Solace Keep. It is actually way more complex than this, but when the story is about to finish, that's what it comes down to. Belvane's Tusk is a miserable region to live in. With no natural resources, people there are barely surviving, and they have upheld the oath of never leaving Solace Keep to protect the garden since their founder, who was also a godlike of Sepal, just like us, made that oath. Now the woman wants to uphold this tradition, even if her people are suffering, miserable, and slowly dying due to the terrible conditions or being taken over by the dream thrall illness. The guy, the counselor, wants them to get outside help, get resources, make trade, and leave this terrible, miserable space for a better life for his people. When we talk to the guy, he seems like the most smartest and the most sensible guy there, and honestly, I was siding with him. But here is the crazy part none of you saw coming. Woman good, man bad. So by the end of it, they have to make the man look like the one who is in the wrong and make the woman look like the one who was right all along. That's what they have done this entire game. So they completely changed the guy's character to that of a traitor who betrayed his own people and tried to flood Solace Keep with lava. Crazy character development. But before we go any further, let's talk about how he plans to do it. So basically, the dwarves made a sluice gate system for the lava to make sure that the lava flows properly through and doesn't get overloaded. But here's the crazy thing. They are using metal to make the sluice gates. Do these guys not know how lava works? Do you know how metals work? Do you know that metals get melted if you heat them up enough? Bruh, how can you stop lava with sluice gates? How? They would literally melt and go right through the gates. You know what? Why am I even wasting my time with this nonsensical game? I will stop. That's stupid. Now, if the people who wrote this entire story weren't mentally ill, they would have wrote it so that the counselor does this sensible thing, which is rally the people of Solace Keep with facts and logic of not wanting to be bound by oaths made by his ancestors, for which he wasn't even allowed to voice his opinion in the room, since he wasn't even born at that time. The people would listen to this logical thought process and logically side with him. Now, the people who follow the tradition religiously would never listen to logic in the first place, as they have been blinded by their beliefs and refuse to see reality. But he would have a sizable contingent of the population willing to overthrow the stubborn traditionalist leader, who would rather have all her people die miserable deaths instead of breaking an oath she never even saw take place. But then again, doing all of this would be good writing. This would have become a nuanced story where it's hard to decide what's right and what's wrong. Kind of like Fallout New Vegas, where you don't really know who you should side with because every single faction in that game had their own pros and cons. That's what made making a choice feel meaningful. Should I side with the weird guy in a monitor? Should I side with the savage guy who names himself Caesar? Or should I side with the Californian Republic? That's the entire beauty of nuanced storytelling and choices in these games that make us feel immersed. We actually believe these are real people with real beliefs, all of which fight each other. And we as the player have to make a choice to decide which of these factions win in the end. And our choice has a lot of weight behind it. But we can't have that because the iron rule of feminism says woman good, man bad. So that is why we have the only sensible guy behave like an insane person, so that it makes siding with the woman much easier. Thank you, Obsidian, for making all your choices in the game so heavily one-sided with no nuance whatsoever that I never have to think before making one. So we stop the crazy guy and we go to the garden to save Satal. Now how do we do that? We fight ruined stone golems in the garden and then save her. Here we get to make the choice whether we want to save her or we want to kill her, because here's the crazy part that nobody expected at all. She was the source of the dream scourge all along, the voice in our head. But here's another crazy part. Everyone with a brain, 2 brain cells, already knew it was her who was the source of this, because throughout the story she constantly sympathizes with the victims of the dream scourge and gets mad whenever we kill them. Now let's talk about this goddess a little. Most of her dialogue never makes sense and it is just poetic gibberish. Throughout the game, in every map we experience ancient memories that tell us about the goddess's past, and it reveals to us how she has always lost control and caused the death of millions of people in every region. Sylvain's Tusk is a volcanic hellhole because of her. Emerald Stair is a mishmash of different environments because of her. Even Dawnshore is slowly ruined by her. But here's the crazy part, guys. Another crazy part. Because women can never be wrong, we are asked to forgive all of her sins of her past. Because she's just a child. She doesn't know about the real world. She didn't think burning down the entire village would kill everyone there. It's the same rationalization people use to justify crimes of illegal immigrants in their country by saying that they are uneducated or illiterate. So they didn't think that stabbing someone multiple times would kill them. They were just trying to hug them, guys. Abysmal and abhorrent. But of course, the best ending of the game requires you to save her, so that's what I did. Once that was done, we get back to Dawnshore after weeks because time runs differently in the garden for some reason. And then we have a final showdown with Lodwyn, where we have to kill her a bunch of times to make her goddess who revives her rage quit, and that's the end of the game. Also, you cannot continue the game after you finish the story. I was never able to actually max out my gear by grinding after I finished the game. So my gear was just stuck at the first level of legendary, which kind of pissed me off because I'm kind of a completionist. I like to have perfect gear and everything in every single game I play. But that was a disappointment. Also, not being able to continue the game after you finish the story, I found that to be really annoying because it made getting footage for the first few regions, which I didn't record much of, really hard. But that's the end of the horrible, nonsensical story of this game, which has wrecked my brain trying to explain it. I think I lost many brain cells just trying to explain it in this script. It took me 4,000 words to explain this convoluted mess. But let's just get to the final and the most fun part of this video, which I held off on until the end to shut the mouths of everyone who thinks this is an okay game and that the only reason it's not popular is because of the culture war or because people think it's woke. I'm looking at you, Asmon Bald. Until now, I've tried my best to pick apart every aspect of this game without mentioning the force-fed politics that is injected in this game every step of the way. From the character screen to the narrative to the entire world of this game, including the dialogue. Everything in this game is politically charged for one side of the coin. Yes, you guessed it right. This game is approved by the Rainbow Mafia. A lot of people in the mainstream have ignored all the other mechanically bad aspects of the game and just said that people don't play this game because they think it's woke. People don't think it's woke. It is woke. They have blackwashed the entire game. Every region, everyone looks the same. I can count the number of white people on my fingers that I've encountered while doing everything the game had to offer. Now let's talk about Asmon and how he is either consciously disingenuous or subconsciously disingenuous. He relegated all of the bad press for this game to just the culture war and woke. He played through the entire game, barely thought about everything that took place, talked to his chat, and came to a conclusion that he had fun with the game. I wonder if this sentiment would remain the same if he played the entire game on his own, without the distraction from chat, and had the time to really think deeply about every aspect of this game. The only conclusion I came to after watching all of his opinions on this game is that he had a surface level experience of this game and didn't think too much about it because he has so many other things to worry about in life, like making the 1000 Assassin's Creed Shadows video. Now that's all we will say about Asmon and all the other people who called this game okay and fun, because at the end of the day, even though Asmon's opinions on games may be worthless because he melted his brain playing World of Warcraft for 20 years straight, but his politics are still pretty good, and now I mainly watch him for his politics. Now let's get back to talking about the game and the sin of the woke. Let me be honest, this game is a lot less woke than Dragon Age the Veilguard, even though it is extremely woke and just smothered with the modern audience hallmarks everywhere. Let's start from the very start of the game. The character creation screen and the game's narrative forces you to be an ugly person, and before you complete making your character, even though you have already chosen your gender, which is body types in this game, you still have to choose your pronouns. That's immersion breaking because no normal person gives a fuck about pronouns because it adds meaningless tedium and convolutes day-to-day conversations with people who want to be referred to as an Apache helicopter or a gender-fluid rose petal, when in reality it's just a fat guy with colored hair. These things do ruin the experience for me, but I'm still able to tolerate it if the game is actually good in many ways, like I tolerated The Outer Worlds. In this game, every merchant is a midget woman of color, many times found deep in the woods surrounded by danger, because women can do everything a man can. Every person of importance in this game is a woman. Not a single woman in the game even looks decently attractive. They are all ugly. They made sure every woman looks ugly and unattractive, talks down to you with every line they speak, and cannot help but keep on commenting on your Down syndrome every time you speak to them. The issue isn't with people of color all around the game. Far Cry 6 is a game that takes place on an island primarily inhabited by people of color, and it makes sense that everyone there is a person of color. What doesn't make sense is when we know that medieval fantasy was always a Western story, because that's where it originated from. I wouldn't enjoy a game that covers Hinduism, which is the primary religion of India, and somehow every god has been whitewashed to become a fat white guy from Albuquerque instead. That would be like having a game cover Norse mythology and adding a black giant just to fill a diversity quota. Wait a minute, did I hit a little too close to home, Neil Cuckman? Now it doesn't really matter if every merchant is a strong, empowered woman of color. It doesn't really matter if there are barely any white guys in the game. It doesn't matter if the archmage is a woman. It doesn't matter if the leader of the Streel Garut is a strong and empowered skeletal woman. It doesn't matter if in every instance of this game, narratively, the woman is always right and the men are always wrong, because this is the story they want to tell and they have the right to tell it. But do you know what is the problem? It's that it completely destroys my immersion in the game. I have lived a very hard life from childhood. I have had to deal with a wide variety of people, both male and female. My personal experience is incredibly vast and keeps growing as I age, and I'm just 21. Nothing that happens in Avowed feels real. I never felt like I was playing a narrative-driven game. I always felt like I was watching a Rainbow Mafia propaganda puff piece. It was never about telling a good story. This was always about pushing an agenda, and that's what I hate the most about this game. If giving a good gameplay experience was at the forefront of the development team's priorities, we would have been playing a very different game, and this video would have been a very different video. They were extremely particular and hyper-fixated on making sure diversity was injected into every aspect of this game. Do you know what wasn't the focus when they were trying to make this game? The crafting system, the melee combat, the stamina system, the severe lack of resources, the lack of exploration due to vast empty maps where most of the time there is nothing of value to be found, the game-breaking bugs and glitches that hard stop you from progressing the game, the nuance in storytelling making every choice feel heavy and hard to choose, the extremely useless companions, and the extremely pointless camping system. I don't have to explain the injection of modern politics in this game. It is obvious for anyone who plays this game with even one eye open. But I will say this, Marius the dwarf companion in this game is the only good part of the game. He is the only character in the game that I liked. You know why? Because he is a normal person. He is the only character in this game who speaks and behaves like a normal person and actually has a personality. Kai is just a guy, and we get to know by doing his companion story that he's also gay. The woman in STEM companion, she basically does nothing. Her entire backstory is meaningless and she has no personality except I want to do science. I will do science. I would love to do science. That's her entire personality. There's nothing else unique about her. And the purple furry man, I don't even have words to explain what she is. Everyone who isn't Marius in this game is a caricature self-inserted by the devs or the writers, because I've never met anyone worth their salt speak like these people in real life. And this is all I have to say about Avowed. I am giving this game a 2 out of 10. The only reason I'm giving this game a 2 is because of Marius. Otherwise, this would have been a 0 out of 10. I will never touch this game again. This game made me miss previous Obsidian titles like The Outer Worlds and Fallout New Vegas. This game is a spit in the face of Obsidian Entertainment's legacy. This game is a spit in the face of every fan who was attracted to this game due to their first trailer. This game game is a spit on my face for having wasted so much of my precious life going in depth and making a video about this game. Originally, this video was going to be 3 hours long because of all the issues I have with the game and how many of those small issues existed in the game. But I realized that was too much. The script was actually 20,000 words long. I had to cut down a lot of stuff because the points became redundant. Comment down below what you thought about the video, whether you agree or disagree. Comment down below if you want me to make an in-depth video for Obsidian Entertainment and how the studio might die in the future if they continue this trajectory. And if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It only takes a second and it would make all the hard work feel worth it in the end. This is the hardest I've ever worked on a video, and I don't plan on working this hard on any future video unless this blows up and people want more of this. Thank you all for watching. This was The Nihilist, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.